911, what's your emergency?
I'm freaking out. I can't stop watching these videos. This guy won't let me turn it off.
Sir, what are you talking about?
He's this big bald guy. He's raising his hands up in the shape of horns. What is that about?
Oh boy, we've got a code 666.
What the hell is that?
Mother, man.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the live. Good to see. Already got a little lively crowd over there in the chat. Good to see you ladies tonight. Donna Lembo, Catherine S. You guys are awesome supporters of the channel, and you're ready to pounce. I know. So we'll let some people filter in here and see what kind of crowd we get tonight. But I got thinking that with as rough as this could get, I thought my Billy Bats uh, shirt from Goodfellas would be appropriate. So yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll see. Yeah, a lot of lively people here in the chat already, which is nice to see, and seeing some new faces or new avatars over there. So good to see it. And Voice of Astrology is here. Very cool. Just nice to see the familiar faces. And but yeah, everything's been good on this end. I got the news yesterday about the plea from. I got a text message from A.R. Hayes. Just said Kohberger pleads or accepting a guilty plea or something like that. And I was on my way to a medical appointment, so I didn't want to get into this with all that going on. So I just told him I'd call him when I got done. And then, of course, after I got done and listening to things, and then coming home and watching some stuff, I was getting up to speed on what was happening. And then I saw AR and Lucky in a live. So I'm wondering if he wanted me to get in on that live, and I couldn't because, like I said, I had some medical stuff going on. So nothing bad, just routine type things. So, but yeah, so want to make sure that everybody gets to throw their opinions out there. I obviously cannot possibly respond to all of them, even though my eyesight is a lot better than it ever was. That's for sure. Let me turn this off. There we go. So that I can really see the chat, which is amazing because I couldn't see it before. And so it's almost distracting to me because I keep seeing it and I want to read what's going on. But when you're doing it by yourself, you can't really do that. So yeah, so we got in my lives, I like to keep the nonsense out. So if you're here to just sling mud and get silly like that, there won't be any tolerance for it. So I am not saying that you cannot voice an opinion that might differ from mine or anybody else here in this community. However, you know, you can't come in here and just go for the throat and not be considerate and not be a little bit more friendly about it instead of being so argumentative right out of the box. Okay, so if you can't do that, then you're going to be gone. So really simple, okay? Because I don't want to ruin this for the people that are here that want to talk about this case and what's going on and all that. All right. So just like you guys, I mean, I was completely floored. I mean, just had no idea that this was going to even happen. And I know from just reading some of the comments on videos, that the video I actually published the night before, but the members only until 7 a.m. And then it was for everybody. So there was a lot of comments in that video about what was going on because it came out like right at that time. So it was just a weird coincidence. So, but could be respectful. I'm seeing the people commenting about that. Um, Catherine S. This is great. She was in a frozen shock phase. That's a good. That is a very, very good analogy. I was definitely in a frozen shock phase myself. Wow, that's awesome. So yeah, it was just totally out of the blue. I mean, I had no idea, and it was getting so close. I think everybody was just like getting geared up, and I know people that made like hotel reservations and then had to cancel or a Airbnb and had to cancel it when they changed the date, and then after they changed the date, then he had to go in and actually let it. He had to go in and change it again. When this thing's canceled, so he's changing it twice, and it's just crazy. You see James here also in a frozen shock phase. So James, I'm not even Ber- Berzanskis. Berzanskis, that's a cool last name. Yeah. As a writer, I'm always interested in names that interest me, and I come across some really good ones. So, but yeah, I was always coming up with character names in my books and stuff, and I really really get hung up on coming up with just the best names, and when you find a good one, it's you just it almost the character almost creates itself. So here's Carl. I've been seeing Carl all over the place, of course, spreading that knowledge. But Carl's saying some leftover stuff that LE provided a list of people comparing their DNA with the DNA found in Maddie's fingernails. Negative for Jack D and BK, but wait, a missing name. Maddie told Adam everything. Adam Lauda. Oh, wow. I had not heard that. That must be some breaking stuff there, man. That's wild, man. That's interesting. I'm gonna have to look into that. I had not heard that. Oh, this is a good one. Catherine S says her son's first name is Max and his middle name is Havoc. That is really friggin' cool. I hope he's got a guitar or a drum set or something really just over the top. I mean, a guy with Max Havoc has got to have just some crazy setup. So hopefully that's the case, Catherine. Hopefully, and that it's not too loud for you guys in the house. Drums are the worst. If you got a kid that wants to play an instrument, the last thing you want to do is to let him learn how to play drums because it'll drive you nuts, and everything's crazy expensive. So, oh, there's my mom. Hey, mom, how you doing over there? Maybe the judge won't accept the plea deal. That's a good point. Good point because they have to accept it. But my guess is, that once you've got somebody that is going through this plea bargain process, it goes through layers, and it came from the prosecution. So he's been going hand in hand with the prosecution. So I would assume that he would be, um, you know, in line with them and would accept it. Would accept it. I mean, really, it's like the worst possible way. If this is all true, and this actually is going to play out, like he is really going to take this plea and do his life in prison and never really hear much from him again, I'm assuming. But this just totally, all the unknowns. That's, I think, the worst part about it is all the things that with this will now have to be either just left unsolved or talked about for eternity. This is like a JFK assassination level of just intrigue. I'm not saying, obviously, the murder of a president was much more extreme in just the scope of it, but these were four kids, college kids, and it was an absolutely atrocious crime. So you're talking about some notoriety, and that's why it needs to be handled the right way. And I think a lot of us feel that this is just totally bogus. This is just totally bogus. Yeah, I see my mom commented again. The parents don't have any closure. Yeah, I mean, these people are been hanging on for now 2.5 years, uh, and it's just been awful, for them. I'm sure I couldn't imagine being in that situation. So it's just terrible. So, and you wonder, if is it something that was in the cards the whole time? You were gonna, like string us all along, and then you end it like that. I don't know. But let me look at my notes here and see what I want. I had a kind of an order of how I thought we could go through this here. So don't forget to hit the like button. If you're not a subscriber, please consider doing that before you go. And if you want to drop a comment, if you're on the replay crew, please do that as well. I do have a new Discord set up, but I've got some things to do to make it the way I want it. And I've had somebody reach out, thankfully. I have to get back to them and let them know, yeah, let's design this thing and make it look cool, because you can have like drinks and it's all virtual, but it's kind of neat if you're not familiar with it. And if you're young and you've been doing this for years as a gamer, then you probably like laughing at me because it's like an old thing. But nonetheless, it's super cool. And the Devil's Advocates, they're all into it. Unfiltered Lucky's been doing it for a while now. And AR Hayes and Lucky both in there, I believe. But now Murder Metal Mayhem. So we're all, getting into that whole realm. So that's cool. It's an alternate way we can go, especially if something were to happen where like they took the channel down or something, and we would have a place to go to know that that's where I would be to at least, communicate. But if anybody wants to do a tip or a donation or anything like that, again, not required, but appreciated. You can either do a super chat, or I'll have a thing at the bottom of the screen with the PayPal or the Cash App links on there. So if you want to do that way, but again, not required. Okay. All right. So yeah, looking about the notes here, I wrote down, I want to take a vote. Okay. how many people out there listening right now were more freaked out by the Kohberger uh, plea of guilty or the verdict in the O.J. Simpson trial? What on a level of just totally freaking out? Where would you put at the top of that? Which would have been just the most over the top? Because I remember being huddled around the TV at the OJ verdict too. So I'd be curious. Okay, there we go. Lad of a dog says OJ. Somebody says they're more freaked out by your intro. Nothing to freak out about. Nothing to freak out about. A lot of OJ here. Wow. Okay. Donna says Bryan. Okay. Yeah, I was curious what you guys thought because those would be two just voice of astrology saying OJ verdict shocked her. OJ, yeah, there's a lot of people for OJ here. That's kind of funny. But the thing is with true crime, there are ways you can do it, and there are ways that I think to appeal to the most group of people. In my former life, I did training for people to work with hazardous chemicals and materials in the workplace. So I was dealing with complicated government regulations and stuff like that. So that's how I kind of, adapted to this, is to take some of these things very complicated, like the DNA, let's say. I'm not a scientist. I just got a high school diploma. I mean, I'm not some PhD anything, and not to say that that's a bad thing. I'm just saying I don't have any of that. But I've just got a lot of years of following true crime, and a lot of these things just repeat themselves over and over. I mean, on the Murder Metal Mayhem podcast, when we do these episodes of talking about these guys born in just absolute horrific poverty and being beaten and all these terrible things, and not all of them are like that, but so many of them, it's really bad. It's like they were set up for this, but yeah, I mean, I would see, that, Payne maybe getting out of the policing business. I don't know. It's funny how they all scattered, and what I always found interesting about that was the only one that didn't scatter was the one that they arrested. You know what I mean? The only one that didn't run away was him. So I don't know. See Carl saying OJ, the civil case, but never paid up. Yeah. That's another brutal crime. That would have been an interesting one to cover if I was doing this at that time. But let me see here. So if this all goes as planned, he would actually be sentenced in at the end of July, if everything goes without any hitches. And of course, as we know, if he signs this thing, it's going to sentence him to life without parole and no appeals, which is definitely messed up. He's not going to have a good time in general population. I mean, he's just not. And a lot of people I know, I've been seeing it in the chats, predicting some sort of Epstein-esque type situation, or like Dahmer, getting, attacked by somebody inside. These things happen all the time. It doesn't take them long if that's what if that's what the plan is, right? So that would be horrible if he is not guilty, but I don't know. I mean, I've always said from the beginning that whether he's guilty or he's not guilty, that doesn't really concern me. I just want to make sure that they've got the right person or persons that did this or helped do this, and they all are treated the same way, convicted, tried, put in prison. And if he's like the fall guy, that sucks. And maybe this will cause that to happen. Maybe there will be information coming out as he talks to him. We don't know. I mean, at this point, obviously, we have no idea, but the one that comes to mind in modern times would be Dennis Rader. When he did his plea bargain, he had to go through it in court and like swear that he was telling the truth and go through victim by victim and what he did. And it's awful, and it goes on and it goes on. And it's all on YouTube if you want to, check it out. But he goes through all these things he did and how he did it and why he did it. And it's fascinating, but it's horrible at the same time, and all of us that follow true crime, that interests us. And I know people that aren't into true crime think that's weird, and it is a little weird, I guess. But that aside, it's very, very, very interesting. And I've been seeing in the chat here people saying that this case just has so many twists and turns, and just when you think you had it kind of figured out, that it's like, oh well, what about this guy, and it's just always been hard for me to put all of them. I couldn't come up with a theory that would exclude any of them. And that's why my theory is they all had something to do with it. Now, this, seems to have thrown that in, completely, off the charts if he did do it, especially if he did it by himself. But I'm still not seeing that. This just kind of stinks. This to me is the idea that something's going on. Somebody's got the idea that this is going to be a people are going to be obviously divided one side or the other depending on which way you go, and it's going to be down to the end. And then, like I said, once he gets put in prison, if that's the way it goes, then like I said, we'll probably never really hear from the guy again, unless he ends up writing a book or something like that. Who knows? But the gag order still remains, which I thought that sucked, because I wondered, boy, now with this happening, does that mean all of a sudden they're going to let the floodgates open and let us actually see all this stuff that we've been wondering about? And it doesn't change that, apparently. So unless the judge changes that, it won't be eased up at all. It's still in place. And Steve G, I saw, issued a statement, and their family is obviously furious. I mean, I can't blame them. I mean, that's total BS for everyone involved in this case. But Steve G, he was the one that fought for the death penalty to be on the table in the first place. So he was. And we know that he's been the most vocal of all of them, to the point where it's been a little obnoxious. But I couldn't imagine if that was my child. I'd be going nuts. To me, I think he's too calm. But I don't know. I couldn't imagine it. But the others are just so chill. But apparently the Mogans and the Chapins both support it, and are just glad that it'll just kind of put it to an end, that they won't have to keep hearing about the appeals, and it's constantly in the news, and I get that. I mean, for sure, I think that is the best part for them, at least for the victims' families, is just that it'll just be over with. But they should make him account for everything that he's done and tell us exactly how he did it. And if there was anybody helping him or working with him, then let's hear it. Let's put the cards out on the table and see. Because I know that everybody's getting all crazy with the whole pro burger or this and that. That's just dumb. It should be what's true and what's not true in the case. And if there's a people saying that he's definitely guilty, before this, I don't understand how you could say somebody's definitely guilty by what little they have. So then it becomes an argument on, well, what little do they have? And people get into the DNA and want to talk about all these other things in the white car. And it gets down 1,000 rabbit holes. It really is. It's very, very fascinating. I wonder what case, we'll come across next. Because I don't plan on doing anything different. If I'm not talking about, the Idaho 4 as much, I'm not going to just not talk about it. I'll probably still visit it as things happen because, after the smoke clears here, I don't know what'll be then, Can't predict the future with this one, but I'm definitely, going to be paying attention to it. And but Steve G was the one that wanted the death penalty in there. He fought for it, So I get it that he's really upset about it. But I wonder if anybody out there thinks that this could be some sort of legal tactic. I mean, I don't know. I mean, could it be somebody who has an idea that this could be a ploy, like having him do this then changes something? I know one person had said that it would delay the trial if he fired his counsel, and then they'd have to delay it because now we'd have to get a whole new. But if he's going to do this, I don't know why he would do that. So everything happened so quick. It's slow, like nothing's changed, and all of a sudden, a couple of things happen, and it completely puts it on its ear. Especially with this, the plea thing. That's just wow. I'm just kind of looking at the chat here to see if we've got anybody. So I did some research for this because I wanted to come prepared. Um, because is this like a Hail Mary, in football, where the scores you're losing and you want to throw the touchdown, but you're way far back and the time's almost out. You just let it fly, right? Is that what this is? Is this a Hail Mary? Is this the final? They've tried everything they could try, they being the defense, the prosecution, or the judge, which has been, as I mentioned earlier, in tandem the whole time, shot everything down. Everything. Um, I don't know. There was maybe one thing that he agreed with, but it was pretty trivial. Anything of any importance has been completely shot down. So it could have been a type of thing where they all got together with him and said, what do you want to do? I mean, we've done everything we can do. We filed all the motions we can file, and he shot everything down. So do we want to go for this, or do we want to talk about maybe doing the plea thing? And maybe that's how it happened, boxed into a corner. And I had somebody ask me in a comment on my video from earlier uh, in the day today about the Alford plea. And I did a lot of research on this today because I think that, you know, it would be an interesting thing that's been done before. I'm not sure how many people out there are familiar with it, but I was very, very interested in the West Memphis Three, and very, very interesting with corrupt police, improper crime scene investigation, all sorts of just complete disaster. And so they just the cases are very, very similar in a lot of ways. And that's where I first started getting interested in the DNA and some of the different things that they did there. But the whole way that case got whipped up with that satanic panic, and they just roped these kids in, and they just did not do them any justice. It's just absolutely terrible. But they wound up all getting convicted. One of them got a death sentence. The guy that was their quote unquote leader, if you want to call it that, Damien. Uh, he was the leader of the little group there, and he gets death. And he was in a part of the prison where the lighting was really bad, and his eyesight was being affected by it, and he couldn't. They wouldn't move him apparently, or something. His eyesight was getting worse and worse, and so this opportunity came up for them to claim, use this Alford plea. And when you do this, it's got to be approved by the judge and the prosecutor. So it seemed like, man, this is a totally rigged game. I mean, how are you supposed to, play by those rules, right? That's why it's not used that much, apparently. But it's an interesting thing, because what it is you're guilty. You're saying you're not guilty, I should say, and but that you admit that they've got a strong case against you, and so you're gonna take you just say that you're guilty, because the original case that it's based on, I think it was in the 60s, 66. Um, there was a person that was tried and convicted for murder, and then if he would have said he was guilty, would have it was like a loophole in the rules. I can't remember exactly what it was, but that's why he said he wanted to claim this Alford plea, and the state would save face that they had, that he was guilty. But he got out on this technicality that says, I don't think that I think they had so much evidence that would look bad on me, not necessarily saying that you did it, but all this circumstantial evidence that could maybe be put on you, and you just feel it's overwhelming, so you take the other option. I mean, people, do what you got to do when you're in those situations. So it's interesting, though, about it. I don't know. Let me look here in the chat if anybody. Yeah, I don't know if they would allow it either. I saw somebody said that. Here's one from Carl. For four persons of interest no longer in Idaho: Emma Bailey in Nevada, Adam Lauda in Texas, Loach and Barracoa in Spain. I heard that those two went to Spain, but I didn't know if they really were there. It's just like the Showalter thing. Did he really go to Africa? You know, a lot of people said that he did because he's got family there in South Africa. But I don't know. I know his parents work down there as doctors, like periodically throughout the year. But yeah, that's interesting. I don't see how they'll not be interesting even after all this is said and done. I just am unable to admit that there's not some other thing going on here that connects all these things that we've been talking about. You know, I think that you know, it's one of those cases where you could go on and on and on about it. You know, I mean, you could just pick apart different things, but I'm curious how many people are going to want to do that. I mean, how many people out there here tonight? You know, you guys are going to move on to different cases, or are you guys gonna stay with the Idaho 4 for forever and ever? Um, I'm sure there'll be a group that'll want to keep talking about it. You know, trying to catch some of these comments here. Under DW, why would they leave if the real killer is arrested? Why would they leave if the real killer is arrested? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, just to talk about all the different things that we had observed in the case, possibly that don't seem to have an answer. You know, I mean, people are, you know, talking about true crime because there's interesting things like, you know, the Black Dahlia murder. You know, that's an unsolved case. I think that was in the 50s. That was brutal. Um, Unsolved, woman found on the side of the road, really, really rough. So that's those are the cases that I think would be interesting to talk about, just like we're doing this, but pick apart other cases, you know, and some current, some not. That's how we do it on the podcast. We do serial killers, we do prison escapes, we do some different things, but it's all crime related, and that's what we like. But language is a little rough over there, so if you're not into that sort of thing, don't go there. But if that doesn't bother you, you might like it. And that's why I do the channel, because it's kind of like the PG-13 or R, whatever you want to call it, version, and not something more vulgar, or you know, dark humor and stuff like we do on the podcast. So it's not for everybody. So just warning, if you're going to go check it out, it's on the channel. You can. We've got like 260 something episodes. We've been doing this since 2018. Um, so, you know, and before that, I've been doing stuff with true crime for a lot. I've written songs about different killers. I've written songs about Gacy. I wrote a song about BTK. I wrote, you know, a lot of atrocities, you know, things that have happened in history. You know, just I like to write things that make me interest me, that make me wonder, and things I didn't know before, learn something. You know, that's how I like to approach it. But I hope that you know more people will want to stick around, and try to have to kind of reformat things to kind of pick up some new cases. I know, you know, some people have been doing Gilgo Beach. I would be interested in that. You know, originally from that part of the country, but you know, that would be interesting, I think, to do that one. I've got an interesting friend who would be incredibly appropriate to talk to about Gilgo Beach, but he would have to do it anonymously, because I'll leave it there. But has to do with the medical examiner's office. So that would be cool to get him on an episode and talk to him, even if we have to have a funny avatar for him or something. But yeah, I'll keep you posted. I'd like to maybe do that. I've done a couple of episodes on him, but not really, you know, much, and I didn't really get much traction on it. I tried to do some stuff on Delphi. I've tried the different cases, but it's tough. Um, Catherine S says she loved to hear about the Gilgo Beach stuff. Yeah, that would be an interesting one. Uh, I've been kind of hearing through the grapevine that there's some drama over there. So with police related stuff, and that's a big thing with people that are into true crime like us that like the controversy, right? We love that stuff. I know I'm like that. Yeah, there we go. Here's Carl again. The fun began with Ashlyn Couch's fake rental maneuvering on June 5th. That is very odd with her with that. Rent paid monthly on an unoccupied room, dope stash funded by Emma, possibly. Motivation for multiple homicide, possibly. Yeah, I mean, you and we've talked about this chatting wise, Carl. I know we agree with each other here that that room was probably used for that purpose. I know I've talked to AR Hayes about that, from a person that knows that sort of activity, and or being around criminals that have done different things. And so this is a kind of thing that they do all the time, where dealers will buy up a room like this and pay the rent, and then just put a lock on the door, and then whoever has access to it could get in there. And I don't know if they were using it. There's that one body cam video where you can see that light is on in the room. So I don't know if they were actively using it like a little like drugstore. I have no idea. I'm just saying that makes me wonder. The other thing about that room that I found interesting when I was looking at the blueprints, or not really blueprints, but like basic drawing of the layout, was that room that we're talking about in the basement, the unoccupied room that Carl refers to here. In that room is the breaker. So the power comes in that room. So that's why one of my theories I've thought is, that there were some people lying in wait in that room, ready to go, and then they killed the lights. And then, not only would they have been drunk and half out of it, but they would have been, in the dark, completely unable to see what was going on. And you could buy cheap night vision goggles for like $40 on Amazon. So you could throw those things on and you'd be able to see them, and they would be able to see you. It was just a thought. I found it interesting. I hadn't heard anybody talk about it. Now, there could have been a second breaker put in maybe when they put on the addition. That I don't know. But if it's all coming through that one main source, that may be the main that would kill all the power in the house in one shot. So, they wouldn't have anything. So, but yeah, interesting to talk about that. Definitely interesting to talk about that. Good stuff as always, Carl. All right, let's see here. What else? Um, yeah, that Alford plea is that U.S. Supreme Court, North Carolina versus Alford. Yeah, and if when it was originally, argued as, was it legit? Um, it was referred to as a voluntary and intelligent defense. So you're using it as part of your defense. Like if that's a better option for you, whether it's true or it's not true, you're okay with it because the ends justify the means, basically. So 17% of state inmates and 5% of federal inmates have used the Alford plea. Apparently, all states and federal can use it, but, and that's a big but, the judge and the prosecutor have to agree to it. So I can't imagine that's going to happen. So I think that, it's probably not going to be a thing, but I've had people asking me about it, and I didn't really know what it was other than I knew that that's how the guys in the West Memphis 3 got out. I am looking to do a long form video on the West Memphis 3. I know it's an older case, but it fascinates me. I think the West Memphis 3 is one of those cases that happens in history that should never be forgotten because it shows how people could get swept up so easily in hysteria. And I know people have done studies on this sort of thing. I know we talked about it on the podcast, but these guys, in that satanic panic era of the 80s and early 90s, when these church organizations were going up against, the record labels that were selling, rock and heavy metal, and trying to say that it was like poisoning the youth and all this stuff, and they were putting stickers on the albums. I'm just saying this because I know there's maybe some younger people here that may not know what that means. Like going to sticker on the album, nowadays everything's digital. So it was a big thing, and they really, I know from having long hair and tattoos and stuff, is that you get singled out. You're picked on a little bit because you look suspicious to them being the cops, and so it's a just like any other group, you have to fight that, and that's part of it. I mean, if you're going to be willing to do it, you got to be willing to do it all the way, I guess. So, um, but but yeah, I'd like to keep doing cases that interest all of us. So yeah, if you've got anything that you've stumbled upon, you want to shoot me an email, which is pete@murdermetalmayhem.com, or you can get a hold of me through the chats. I do read most of the comments. That does get crazy um, to get to all of them because wow, there's an awful lot, and I appreciate that very much. So I do read as many of them as I can. Um, Oh, here's another one from Carl. Another case I scrutinized last year: the mysterious death of British financier Thomas Kingston and husband, royal family member Lady Gabriella. Interesting. I had not heard of that. I had not heard of that. That's one that got by me, but I'll check that out. Thanks, Carl. That's good to know. That's good to know. I'm gonna star that. Yeah, this whole, I see. I'm just reading some of the comments here. People just really disappointed in the way this thing has turned out. I mean, I'm with you. Nobody likes this is like reading a book and like the last 50 pages are ripped out. You know what I mean? And it just ends with this cliffhanger. And it's like, are they trying to sell us on like season two? Is this going to be like some sort of like TV show, like that one with Jim Carrey in it? Is it gonna be like that? I don't know. I hope not. I mean, to think that this would be an actual thing that was just to mess with us or some sort of psyops. I know I've got a lot of people that have been asking about that. Another weird thing with this case, I know Birdie was talking about it. I heard him and Devil's Advocates talking about it. Was the stuff going on with the fires in Coeur d'Alene up in those mountains, and they come out there to the police or the fire department shows up to put the fire out, and they start taking fire like they're getting like ambushed with like M16s and AK-47s and stuff like that. Pretty crazy. Killed a couple of them. So then it's this big standoff, and then all of a sudden this body shows up, and it's like this younger guy, and like the weapon supposedly that he used, if he discontinued himself, was like an odd weapon to use for it. Things didn't seem to add up, but because this was a big brush fire, they had to get him out of there. So we like completely trashed the crime scene. So that's probably will go as an unsolved case. I mean, it's pretty wild. I mean, it really is. It really is. So let's see here. Aladdin Dog wonders what they're going to do with the dollhouse. That's a good question. Maybe they ought to have like a little museum over there for all this stuff. Something tells me they're going to want to put this in the furthest part of the attic with a big black garbage bag over it and says, "Don't ever open this again," or something like that. They're going to want to forget about this. They're not going to want to. They're not going to want to get in the eBay business of trying to auction off the dollhouse. But that'd be pretty wild. I'm sure somebody'd buy that. Yeah, this whole thing. I know. Everything I've heard here in the last couple days. I've been trying to get little bit of this, a little bit of that. Um, Listened to Lana for a while, listened to Jules, checked out some Harsh, and then watched the A.R. Hayes, A Convict's Thoughts, and Unfiltered Lucky did a really good live last night. It was a lot of fun. I watched I watched it and really enjoyed it. I wished I could have been there with them, but like I said, I had to deal with this medical thing. But I was able to hear it, and so it was good. So there is some good information out there that people are putting out, and so it's worth hearing your news from multiple sources. Just like we all do here on YouTube, we check out different things. That's the beauty of it. You could just go check out whatever, and and you don't have, if you don't like it, you could just go click on something else. That's what blows my mind is these people that are really nasty in the comments and stuff, because it's like, well, why are you here? If it's upsetting you that much, then maybe you should, you know, you should just go somewhere else. I see Donna Lembo says, Pete, I watched all those channels too. Yeah. I think a lot of us watch a lot of the same things, right? Um, there's some that I don't watch all the time, but I do check them out. I like Nika's Neuro Nuggets. She's a trip. She's definitely out there, but I like some of her stuff. Um, so she's very interesting. That's the thing, is making it interesting. Is you could do this like a news reporter and it would be like watching paint dry. But because of all those years of me doing that training and trying to keep people's interest talking about hazardous things, um, and training like maintenance guys to be able to do this, I think a lot of that comes over into doing these videos with you, because I try to take it and kind of make it easy to understand, because it's a lot of stuff to try to keep straight, especially in Idaho 4 and Delphi. I mean, oh my God. I mean, if you were trying to keep track of every single person, here we go. Okay, Estes Crime Maze. It amazes me how so many YouTubers scared of bringing out the truth on this case, which is an Idaho 4 psyop, an extraction operation removal. Feds had the house, surveillance, and neighbors. They knew the students were. It got cut off. So I've kind of wondered this too. I did a whole video, multiple videos about what I called my alive theory, which is that they were still alive. I just recently did a video where I say I don't find that completely out of the realm of possibility here. That they were swept up in the witness protection program, and this was a whole bunch of nonsense to keep us distracted. But it's out there. I mean, I know when you bring this kind of stuff up, people make fun of it and stuff, but I don't. I don't at all. I don't see where it's out of the realm of possibility. I know that it's out there, and I know that it's as for me personally, it's as borderline being too much for me to accept. But this, it would not surprise me. I know that Michael Adario Photography, he had got a hold of me about some video stuff he's been doing on Moscow, and about the different things with the psyops and all this kind of stuff. Very fascinating, and we've had many discussions about it. And it's, to me, I think it's interesting. So no, I don't think it's crazy. I think it would explain a lot of things. It would explain why all these parents have been like totally MIA through this whole thing. I mean, that's that's the thing. It's just one thing after another. Oh, I was just reading one that was a good one. Any nurse looking at the crime scene knows what was staged, as forensic scientists at a time didn't wear masks, slippers, not proper PPE gear. Yeah, I was looking at the PPE stuff again for my line of work. Never saw any of that. Even when they tore that building down, all that dust that was there, that operator supposed to have a mask on, he didn't have anything on. So apparently in Idaho, they just don't care about any of that stuff. I don't know. But I did find it interesting as well. Because they did find lead and asbestos there, but they had it removed, I believe. But still, with all that dust, he still had to have some sort of PPE, as you say. All right, let's see here. Uh, Teresa Morris. Bubbly has some serious video making talent, in my opinion, just in general. I really like her work. I'll admit, I got to be in the mood for it because she's got quite the personality. But I do like what she does. She's very, very good at picking out details. She knows the names of everybody at the grub truck, probably knows their birth date and horoscope, But she's really great. So now her and Huda London, I like Huda as well. She's very fascinating with some of her insights, and I know a lot of the stuff that I've talked about. She talks about too. A lot of that Banfield stuff. She's all about the Banfield, um, and that's what I'm saying. Is even though, let's just say that this plays out like they say it will, and he signs this plea deal, to me, that doesn't make all this other stuff just vanish. It doesn't make it just vanish. It's still there. It's this insidious, uh, with all these different deaths that have happened there. I was talking to a guy that's new to the case and was asking me a lot of questions, and I was giving him some video links and stuff, and he was just blown away. At you talk about Hudson Lindau and Hannah Cleary and Joseph Wyderick. There's some, really, really fascinating things that have been deemed accidents. Accidents. So I don't know about all that. I don't know about all that. All right, Estes crime maze. Yes, Pete. All goes back to that crime scene was staged, no doubt. As you said, well, 911, no mentions of blood anywhere. I mean, yeah. U.S. Marshals moved boxes out. Birdie found out. Showed, says Beth. So, yeah, I agree. I agree. It was a staged. Now, why they staged it is interesting, isn't it? I mean, why they would have staged it. And are you saying that if it's just Bryan Kohberger, he did all that and staged them and got out of there with no speck of DNA on him? In how many minutes? I mean, come on. So I don't know when the staging would have been going on. So I'm curious if there's anybody out there that's been all bent on Bryan Kohberger's guilty from the beginning, and you want to let me know. I mean, what do you think about that? You know? Yeah, here, sweet cynic, greetings, Pete and chat. Families and the public have a right to know how these murders happened. If Kohberger did this, he didn't do it alone. Will we ever know what really happened? I hope the answer to that, sweet cynic, is that yes, we will. But I think that's maybe a little Pollyanna. I know that's probably a dated reference, but rose-colored glasses. Looking through rose-colored glasses, I don't know. I think that he's always going to be. You know, they wanted it to be neat and simple and put to rest, but it got messy. I think they got caught in a situation where they didn't expect it to be as big of a deal, you know. So it was right around Thanksgiving, so people got holidays on their mind. It's Idaho, like people just in the rest of the country just don't really know much about it, about the area or anything. It's a very rural place, beautiful, but very rural. So, those kind of stories can get buried very easily, but that one just seemed to catch fire. And a lot of it is because of the fact that the victims were attractive. And as sick as that is, sometimes people get upset. Like that Natalie Holloway story. My gosh, I mean, that went on and went on and went on. And if she wouldn't have looked like she looked like, then they wouldn't have done anywhere close to that. And she did have a mom that was super vocal and very, pushing it too. So that helped. But I don't know. I don't know. All right. Boy, Estes Crime Age is bringing it tonight. Did you know, Pete, legally feds can stage violent events if confidential informants are compromised? Fact I mentioned in my videos. This is Idaho 4. Yeah, I believe I've seen your videos before. Yeah, that rings a bell with me. And it wasn't a bad bell. It was a good bell. So thanks for being here tonight. Yeah, Donna mentions about the Natalie Holloway story. They had money too, and that helps. You get these people from the poor side of town. Good luck, buddy. Trying to hide my cup so I don't get dinged for showing somebody's logo, and I don't want to promote a company that's not paying some bills here. So I'm not going to give them the free ad. No, really, it's more that I don't want to have a problem with YouTube with it, to be completely honest with you. Well, thanks, Estes. Appreciate that. Appreciate that. And here, P. Sloan says, I still think BK is innocent. And you're entitled to believe whatever you want to believe. I don't know. I don't know what to believe yet. In my opinion, until something is signed and official, all bets are off, right? I mean, we have no idea, what is going on here. This is what we've been told. Everything we've been told from day one in this case has been screwed up. So I don't know why this would be any different. Okay. So I'm still like, got one eye half open here, like, let's see. Because this is just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It really doesn't. It really doesn't. So it just has a foul, like everything else in this case, a foul smell to it to me. So yeah, and here's Tina, that 911 call, very suspect. Oh, hell yeah. So if Bryan did this, okay, then why would there be this staged 911 call? Because I don't care what they say, that call is not real. That call was recorded either earlier that morning and they put that timestamp on it, 11:56. I mean, as we found out, Bonner's Ferry, the police like to play games with the timestamps. So, and I had a guy that commented in one of my videos that's an expert on digital recording and tape, analog tape to digital and all that. And he was saying that, anything like that would be very, very suspect. That's just, they're just, charlatans. And that's what I've thought about it, to be completely honest with you. Let's see here. What else we got? Here's one from Carl. It could be Kaylee uncovered a massive local trafficking ring using the King Road house as a hub for stashing, dealing, partying, and other forms of criminal activities, hence her October departure. Yeah, something happened, right, Carl? I think that the breakup with Jack Decor, I think that was 3 weeks out. This is about that far out. Something happened, whether she uncovered something. We know she was all into true crime. And we all know that eventually, unfortunately, the girl met her demise, but she would be listening to Murder Metal Mayhem, right, with the rest of us. So she was interested in this sort of thing. So did she uncover something, that she wasn't supposed to know? Maybe could you be living in that house and be oblivious to what was going on there? I guess maybe, but she was gone, like you said, from October on. I don't know. I really, really torn on that one. I agree with you, though, Carl. It's very, very possible that something was uncovered, and I know that there's been talk. And again, I know some of this stuff is rumor. You do the best you can to parse it, but it's still, it is what it is. But there was talk that Ethan was well aware of what happened to Hudson Lindau, that he was not found drowned in 2 inches of water at Paradise Creek, but he was supposed to be hazed, and they were waterboarding him, and it went over the top, and then he was taken out to Paradise Creek and dumped, is what the rumor is. And I've done videos on this, so if you're interested in it, check it out, Hudson Lindau. But yeah, it's crazy. And then they ruled it an accident, and it was another one where it happened on a Saturday night, and it wasn't until noon the next day that they discovered him, and it was actually Chief Fry that discovered him, oddly enough. But yeah, so it's kind of crazy, with this case, how many just weird coincidences there are. Like, for example, the Hudson Lindau, he was found face down in Paradise Creek, which runs behind Greek Row. And Paradise Creek goes all the way through town. And on the other end of town, like miles away, but this was about 7 years before, Joseph Wyderick was found beneath a bridge, and it was the Paradise Creek Bridge. So the two of them died in Paradise Creek years apart, but just another just odd, weird little thing that if I was writing a story, I would throw in very sparingly, because if you did it too much, it would be just too many things, too many things. However, in this case, that too many things was long since, scaled. That is, we're way beyond that. All right. We're past that. All right. We're past that. But yeah, it's very possible, Carl, that something like that was uncovered. We just don't know. We just don't know. Let's see here. We got some other comments. I usually try to cut these off at 90 minutes. My light, I don't have my light on in here, so it's starting to get dark. So I'm almost looking like I'm in a basement, but it's not. It's not like that. But yeah, at 15 minutes or so, we'll wrap it up. Oh, thank you. Beautiful wife. Oh, wow. I feel like I'm on the surface of the sun here. Holy crap. Whoo. Wow. Oh, I'm trying to hide it. All right. Let's see. So Donna says, hit the like button. It does really help. You guys don't realize it, that once YouTube sees all that activity, that's why I always say go in there if you have a minute and like some of the other commenters' stuff because that helps. So every time you do stuff like that, it helps. It makes YouTube understand that there's some interest, and that if that's interesting to some, then maybe they would put it out to more. And that is true with that. It's how it works. So it really does help, and it doesn't cost you anything to do it. So thank you, Donna, for reminding us about that. Let me see if I've got any things. Yeah, any other topics here as we wind it down? If there's any others that you guys think about, I am definitely really seriously looking at Gilgo Beach. And the one reason I am is because I have a couple of other creator friends that are starting to look at that case. So that would give us something else to talk about outside of Idaho 4 that we're all working on videos for. So it's a friendly thing. It's not a dog eat dog. So yeah, I know AR has talked about it, but the friendship between the different creators in our little circle is really awesome. So I'm going to be doing a live with AR Hayes and Lucky a week from today. So on the 8th, we'll be doing a live at 7 p.m. Central. So that'll be awesome. We haven't done one together in a little while, so that'll be cool. That'll be cool. Let me see. Yeah, for the holiday this week, I'm not sure how I'm going to do the live. If I'm going to do another one, I may not because I did this one. I don't want to overdo the lives. I don't want you guys to get burnt out and listen to me drone on about things, but I want to keep your interest, and maybe it might not be necessary to do another one this week. We got the 4th of July here in the U.S. on Friday, so a lot of people traveling and doing stuff outside. I may not do it. We'll see. If you want to see it live on Saturday or Sunday in the afternoon sometime, drop a comment or a chat and say, yeah, you'd be interested. I kind of see. I don't know. I like doing them. That's the thing. I just don't want to overdo it with you. That's all. So, all right. Any other comments? Got new comments here. Yeah, Teresa Morris, another good comment here. Thank you, Teresa. Emma Bailey definitely seems just as shady gets. I mean, man, if I was just in the same room with her, I think I'd have to go take a shower afterwards. I mean, she's just really skanky. I mean, just seriously. Especially if you watch that body cam video where she gets arrested, she's it's it's not pretty. It's not pretty at all. And she, pulls something out of her backside and throws it in the trash can when she's in the police station. And so, it's nasty. She's just nasty. But I agree. She's very, very shady. Her and her boyfriend, Demetrius, they keep getting let out. They had that Caden Young case over there in Seattle where he OD'd, and then, they were involved with it and sold them products. And then they were in jail for a couple months, and then they had a hearing, and the judge dismissed both their cases, and they walked out of there over some stupid technicality. And it's just like, I don't know. It certainly stinks of that. Maybe they gave up some information, or we're going to give up some information. Who knows? Who knows? We don't know. But yeah, Emma is super shady. So let's see. I like this one. Trying to get back to it. Teresa, no shit, in the dictionary under shady should be Emma Bailey's picture. That's great. And Carl, in summary, Emma Bailey, the prime mover for 5 homicides, and walked away. Yeah, that's an interesting way of looking at it. It really is. It really is. Let's see here. What else we got? I'm not sure what Max means here. Not sure about that. All right. Well, appreciate you guys doing this live with me. It was a kind of a quick impromptu thing. I wanted to get on the record of my thoughts about the plea deal. Let's see how it works out. Nothing's in stone yet. So, there could still be more twists and turns here. We just don't know. But thank you again for hanging out. Thanks to the mods. I don't know how active you guys were getting people out of there, but I didn't see any problem. So you guys did a fantastic job as always. Thanks, Carl, and everybody else for great comments tonight. So you guys have a good one. We'll see you next time.